Happy Sunday, Tampa Bay. We're with you for another week to talk about the local real estate market here on the Duncan Duo Show. I'm Andrew Duncan, joined by Robert Johnson with my real estate team, and Mike Yates from Atlantic Bay Mortgage. I want to lead off the show today and talk about the most recent Tampa Bay real estate statistics that come out every month. We make sure to talk about them to keep you updated on what's going on in the marketplace. So these are the stats for December. It's basically the year-end stats, kind of a recap on what happened, as well as what happened in December. Tend to see a little bit of a surge in sales in December compared to prior months. Usually you see a much bigger difference between November and December, and this year it was just slightly up from November to December. But December was still really strong, just not up as much as in years past. For example, in November of 15, there were 35% more sales in December than there were in November of 15. In 16, it was about 12%. This year, it was about 2%. So not a big jump in the number of sales. And then back to 14, it was 25%. So usually you see a big jump from November to December. You didn't see that as much this year. It could be inventory. It could be some of the tax stuff. It could be a whole variety of different things that cause that. But we had 3,092 sales in December of this year. That is up from last year's 2,979, but again, just slightly up, not up a lot. Usually we see a bigger jump year over year in December. We didn't see that this year. Average sale price, $266,703, 57 days for the average home to close, and we're down to 2.4 months of inventory, which is a record low. That's the lowest amount of inventory that we have seen in decades in terms of housing. So similarly, as we talk about this a lot, but as you climb the price charts, you see more inventory. Homes take a little longer to sell, and they sell for a greater percentage off the list to sell price ratio. But you don't really see that trend to really kick in until you get up above 500,000. So up to 500,000, those stats are relatively consistent across all price ranges. But when you get above that and you start getting into jumbo loan products and luxury properties, they take a little bit longer to sell. There's a greater percentage of them that do not sell, and then of course the process of getting them sold. We do, however, have more luxury sales now than we did a year ago and 2 years ago. So there are more of them selling. Just the stats are tried and true that it's always going to take longer for those to sell, and they're going to sell for a little bit lower than asking price compared to the norm. So looking back, so if we look at December of 16. The average sale price was $252,000 then, $266 this year, so an increase of about 6% in the average sale price year over year. In December of 15, it was $227, and then in December of 14, it was $212. It's gone from $212 to $227 to $252 to $266. Fellas, you think that trend's going to change anytime soon?
No. Not with 2.5 months of inventory.
Yeah. It can't unless there's some kind of crazy disaster. But I mean, with that little inventory, it just supply and demand, you can't.
Yeah.
And there was so many people sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy for so long, and then now you have people who, even foreclosed and everything else that have waited the 7 years. I mean, all that's kind of every year more and more people are ready to buy, and it's just a lot of people in the pool and not a lot of inventory.
Yeah, and fewer people are looking to sell their home. They're holding on to them. They're turning them into rentals. They're adding on to their house.
Well, where are they going to go?
Yeah,
where are they going to?
That's what their fear is.
Yeah.
Their fear is they're not going to be able to find a house.
Well, and we hear that all the time from sellers.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's hard because they want to go out and they want to buy something before they put their house on the market. They want to put something under contract, but the problem is inventory is so low. Other sellers don't want to
accept the contingency.
Exactly, because there's so many buyers that don't have a contingency. So just a whole bunch of things going on right now that affect a lot of the sales.
One of the solutions for us is obviously we can do a guaranteed sale where we can sell your home fast, and if it doesn't sell, we buy it. Secondly, we will make an immediate offer on your home. So if that's something that's concerning you, we'd love the opportunity to step in and cure that. One other thing that I think is kind of important to look at for home sellers and home buyers is, let's say you're whether you're moving up or moving down, your plan is to move after your sale. So you're selling and then you're kind of transitioning to something else. And I've heard recently sellers say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and keep my house and rent it out, and I'm going to buy another one. And there's sometimes that makes sense, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. So here's an example. You know, we have a customer that's got a luxury property, you know, almost $2 million house, and they say, you know, I want the cash flow, so I'm going to go ahead and rent it out. And when you run the numbers, when you get up into, you know, as you climb the price charts and you run the rent numbers, the amount of rent that they're going to get, it's going to be a very, very, very meager return on investment for the amount of money they have in that house. So I'm always a big proponent of you know, kind of, you know, talking to somebody that think outside the box, which is what we do, and look at other solutions for you. So in talking to, you know, this customer, it's clear that they should sell the existing home, buy a new one, and then after they buy the new one, buy some investment properties. You know, if they really want cash flow, they're going to get much better cash flow buying $10,000 to $200,000 houses than they are renting out their $1-2 million house. So when you're thinking about keeping your property, maybe I understand a lot of times people say, oh, I want to stay invested in real estate. I want to keep owning real estate. And that's fine. You just may not have the right real estate to keep owning. You know, the luxury market is very volatile. You know, holding on to it is risky. It's expensive if you get vacancy. If you spread out that risk amongst a lot of properties, you eliminate the challenges and problems and obstacles that can sometimes occur when, you know, you have, you know, if the $2 million house goes vacant, you're one for one. If one of your $200,000 houses goes vacant, not really that big of a deal. But nonetheless, you know, if you want to stay invested in real estate, doesn't necessarily mean you should keep your primary residence. Maybe selling your primary residence and buying better investment property is a better path to go. And Mike, you know, I know that we've talked about this in the past, but let's say there is someone out there that says, you know what, I see how great real estate's doing. I don't want to sell my existing home because I want to keep it. I want the appreciation, and I want the cash flow. And if we step back and do the math, sometimes, you know what, you're going to do better in renting out other homes than the one that you're in.
Right.
You know, what is the process? So let's say someone wants to do that and they're financing it. You know, should they buy the primary first and then the investments? And then secondarily, you know, what do some of those investment loan products look like? What are some of the limitations?
Right. Well, I always suggest that if people are looking to buy multiple properties, one of which being their primary residence, to always do the primary residence first, because, you know, if something happens along the way and they're not able to, you know, let's say they bought several investment properties and something happens and they can't buy the primary residence, then they may have to go stay in a house that they don't really want to. So I typically suggest to my clients to go for the primary residence first. But as far as qualifying for that, you know, especially let's say you want to vacate your home and use it as a rental property. Depending on the type of loan, there's different guidelines out there for whether it be a conventional loan for the new purchase, VA, FHA, as far as using offset rent to, you know, take care of a mortgage payment on the current house and qualifying for the new one. You know, or if you don't have it rented out prior to leaving, you essentially just have to qualify, you know, financially for both properties. As far as the investment properties are concerned, we have an option with as little as 15% down. You know, it does involve carrying PMI, which a lot of people don't want to do, especially on investment property, because that's, you know, additional payment on your mortgage that you have to get covered by rent, so it's going to eat into some of your margins. So, you know, 20% is a little bit more common. Kind of the same deal. You know, your income has to support it. We typically, you know, want to see that you have reserves in the bank as well to cover that, to cover the vacancy factor. You know, that way if you're not able to get it rented, or you lose a renter, or your renter's just not paying rent, that you still have the funds to make the payments on those.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting though, there are a lot of people, we look back at some of our, you know, past customers, there are a lot of people that hold on to real estate here and then move away too, or they get relocated. And so they keep their, you know, primary residence, which is a $500,000 house, they move away. The problem is that, again, you know, you've moved away and you've got a high-priced, you know, property. Again, it just makes sense to break it off. Have two $200,000 houses. You're better risk against vacancy. You're going to get better cash flow. You're going to have different tax benefits. Rarely does it make sense, in my opinion, to keep the initial property that you own unless it's like an entry-level starter house. Outside of that, the numbers just tend to not make sense, and it's better to buy other smaller priced homes and then sell the existing property.
Right, it's gonna be easier to find someone that can afford the rent on a $200,000 home than a luxury property, for instance. There's just not a lot of people out there that can afford that.
Or that will rent, because they'll just go buy.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So, you know, one of the things I want to talk about next, and I don't have enough time for it, so I'm just going to tease the next topic here a little bit. You know, talking to our accountant and some of the financial people out there, you know, really hearing a lot of buzz about how the tax changes are going to really force and press people from New York and California and some of these high state income tax places to move here. So our inventory challenge doesn't look like it's getting any better. You know, if we have more buyer demand and still not enough homes to sell, that means prices go up, but it still doesn't create the inventory obstacle. So, you know, that's something that I think we're going to continue to be challenged with. It's you know, the builders can't build stuff fast enough, and you know, we can't find homes to sell, you know, fast enough, and that's just the you know, the market of the moment. I think that's going to continue.